Hello, sociology class. This is Mr. Janosiak coming to you from my home. Today, we're doing section 3 of social stratification. We'll be doing this today and tomorrow. And it is about poverty, specifically in the United States of America. Okay, the main idea: Americans living below the poverty level have fewer opportunities. Government welfare programs attempted to remedy this situation. Some questions to consider. How is poverty defined in the United States? What groups of Americans are affected by poverty? What are the effects of poverty on poor Americans? What steps have been taken by the federal government to reduce the effect of poverty? So, defining poverty in the United States. The United States is one of the richest countries in the world. However, not everyone in American society shares equally in this prosperity. Almost 46.7 million people, about 14.8% of the population, live below the poverty level. Many millions more make incomes that are too low to meet their basic needs. However, they make too much money to qualify for public assistance. For all of these people, daily life is often a struggle. Who is classified as poor depends on how poverty is defined. In general, poverty is seen as a standard of living that is below the minimum level considered adequate by society. Thus, poverty is a relative measure. What one society considers poverty might be seen as an adequate standard of living in another. For example, many poor Americans live more comfortable lives than the majority of people in some industrializing nations. This fact does not mean that there are no poor people in the United States. Rather, it means that the standard of living in the United States is high. This is an interesting idea to kind of just think about. You may hear in your lives somebody say, well, the poor people in America have TVs. Yes, this is true. Many people in poverty in the United States do have TVs. However, this does not mean that by the relative standard of life in the United States of America, that those people are not poor or living in poverty. What does it mean to be poor in the United States? To answer this question, you need to look at the characteristics of poverty in the United States and at the effects that poverty has on people's lives. You also need to examine some of the ways that the government responds to the problem of poverty. The U.S. Census Bureau defines poverty in terms of the minimum annual income needed by a family to survive. This minimum income is called the poverty level. The government considers families with income levels below this amount to be poor. Remember, it is a census year. The poverty level is determined by calculating the cost of providing an adequate diet based on the U.S. Department of Agriculture's minimum nutritional standards. This figure is then multiplied by 3 because research has indicated that poor people spend 1/3 of their income on food. Each year, the government adjusts the poverty level to reflect increases in the cost of living. The poverty level, most often quoted in news stories, is for a family of 4. The government actually establishes a series of poverty levels that takes into account the number of people in a family. The table on this page lists the poverty levels for various family sizes. So pause here. First of all, this is not a page. I just blindly, like a sheep being led by the wolf, read that to you. But a couple things is, yes, the poverty level in America at a national standard is pretty general. Cost of food times 3. One thing that you should consider is that, though, when you have a poverty level for a national, as a national measure, remember that like the whatever money that looks like, that income threshold to be poor or not poor, if you live in a place like Los Angeles versus a place like rural Oklahoma, if you make $40,000 in rural Oklahoma or 40,000 in California, that is going to have a huge disparity on your way of life. And so this kind of standardized poverty level for the whole nation gets much murkier and much trickier to measure poverty when you think about the different regions of our country and the different standards of life among the different states. So I have that table for you to look at. Oh yeah, it's a good table. 4 legs, Expert craftsmanship. It's pretty good stuff. I also have this table for you to look at. Okay, I have the 2019 Federal Poverty Guidelines. So family size of, let's say, 4, traditional nuclear family. That the poverty guideline is annual income of $25,750. And then that means like a $12.38 wage an hour, right? So that is the poverty threshold for a family 4 at a national level. An income of $25,750 for a family of 4. One person, just for context, one person living in poverty is $12,490, which is about a $6 hourly wage. Now, again, if you are a single person making $12,490 in Oklahoma, your standard of life will look very different than someone who makes this amount of money living in a place like Los Angeles. So a standardized federal level of poverty is tricky, but here are those numbers for you. Recently, poverty researchers have questioned the usefulness of the government's poverty levels. They point out that the method for calculating poverty was developed in the 1960s. Since then, eating and spending habits have changed greatly. In response to this criticism, the Census Bureau has begun to experiment with different definitions of poverty. One definition bases the poverty level on spending for the basic necessities, which include food, clothing, housing, and a little bit more, other personal expenses. Using this definition would raise the poverty level for a family of 4 by a few $1,000s. As a result, several million more Americans would be added to the ranks of those in poverty. So, right, this calculation comes from the 1960s. You know they didn't have in the 1960s? Household internet, which you may not think is a need, but consider now in this pandemic culture we're living in, for students who are living in poverty, it sure seems like something like internet is now a necessity, but the cost of that is not included in the federal guidelines for poverty. Variations in American poverty. Not every American runs an equal risk of being poor. Characteristics such as age, sex, and race, and ethnicity affect poverty. As an age group, children have the largest percentage in poverty. Children under age 18 form 25% of the population, but they represent 33% of those living in poverty. Not all children have an equal likelihood of being poor. The level of poverty among African American and Hispanic children is more than twice the level among white children. About 57% of the poor are women. Also, women head about 1/2 of all poor families. As in the case of children, not all female-headed households are at equal risk. Almost 40% of households headed by African American and Hispanic women live in poverty. This compares to a rate of 25% for families headed by white women. As the statistics above indicate, poverty varies by race and cultural background. Regardless of age or sex, African Americans and Hispanics are more likely than whites to live in poverty. As you can see in the table above, African Americans and Hispanics have poverty rates that are almost twice that of the United States as a whole. Yes, again, a sheep led by the wolf. But I do have that table that breaks it down by race and sex for you to look at. So here is a table. And then here's the data. Oh no! Oh, it's not working on my slides. That is a tremendous bummer. Let me see if I can find it now. What did I look at? Data. Oh no. It was poverty. Oh, there it is. See? Look at that. Oh, you know what? I'm not even recording this tab. So you can't even see my screen. So this is all madness to you, I'm sure. But I'll just, if you give me a second, I will pull it up. Well, there are no promises. There are no promises in this world. Here we go. Let me see if I can take this. Oh wait, actually if I exit out of here, oh, what is going on? Boy, that table joke is looking pretty dumb right now. Okay, I got you. There we go. Try to turn this. I mean, if you're still here and you haven't checked out of the video by now, more power to you. Congratulations. So, poverty rates, urban rural areas, right? Here we have white alone. Okay, look at this number 13 and 11 versus black alone, right? Double the rate. 30% among white and urban areas versus 20% in black communities. There's American Indian communities. Okay, Hispanic Latino communities. See these numbers here? Hispanic Latino, 24, 24. Black alone, 27, 27. Right, double that of the white rates in America. So there's that data for you to look at if you survived and made it to here with me. Okay, I will upload the last final piece of this lesson on Thursday. I hope you're all healthy and well and doing well.